Hello everyone and welcome back to the next lesson of our Java course. So in previous few lesson we are focusing on to the conditional logic. So we'll continue our journey and today we're gonna look into the switch statement in Java. Okay, so think of a switch statement as a great alternate when you are using a multiple if else condition. So let's say in your program you are using multiple if else conditions. You can always think whether a switch statement fits into this one, or can it be a good alternative of using those multiple if and else conditions. And switch statements are particularly useful when you have a many possible values for a single variable. For example, if you have a single value and there could be 4 or 5 different alternate, like one of them is true. So instead of having a multiple if and else conditions, I think switch statement fits good into those criteria. All right. So what we're gonna cover in this one is, of course, what are the switch statements, how they works, and some of the real life example to connect with your day-to-day life, so that you can relate how the switch statements fits into those one. All right. So to start with this one, right, let's take a very simple example. And all of us love movies, right, watching movies. But we have this habit when we start watching a movie, we want to find out what's the rating for this movie, right? It could be good, bad, terrible, excellent, okayish movie, right? So let's build a program where you have a certain input, which basically input is the rating, and based upon that rating, let's say it's an integer number, right? And you have to print the rating for that movie. All right. So what we're gonna do is, let's say I have this variable which says rating, and I'm gonna assign value, let's say 4. Okay. I'm gonna use if condition. If rating is equal to 1, I will say terrible. Okay. Then I'm gonna use else if. I'm gonna say bad. Okay. All right. So this is how my code will look like, right? Depend, if you are feeling it non-readable, you can always maybe add some more lines, right, just for a more readability. But the whole idea is you have a multiple if and else condition. So if you run this program, you will gonna get good, because number 4 is good, right? So it works. There is no issue in the program, but it's a little bit of a clunky code, right? And think of this one. Let's say right now we only have 5 possible values. What happened with this code when you have, let's say, 10 possible values for a given variable, right? So you have a rating, and then let's say you have 10 different ratings. Then this code is not gonna look good, right? It's gonna be a more clunky code. Correct. So can there be possibly a better alternative using so many if and else conditions, right? And that's where switch statements comes handy. All right. Now the question is, what is a switch statement in Java? All right. So think of a switch statement in Java, which is used to execute one block of a code out of many options, right, based upon the value of that variable. So think of a switch statement where you have one variable, it has a one value, and out of these many blocks, every if and else if, think of these as a one single block. So based upon this value, only one block is gonna execute, right? So it's sort of a decision maker process. So instead of writing your multiple if and else conditions, we're gonna utilize the switch statements. All right, so we're gonna convert this if and else statement back to the switch case. Okay, so we will keep this ready, int rating as ready. So the first thing in switch statement is this keyword as a switch, right? So I'm gonna pass a rating to this one. So everything within this rating, this switch is the different conditional logic. All right, so case 1, I'm gonna say terrible. Okay, and then I'm going to use break statement. Okay. All right, so this is how my switch statement look like when we converted our previous if and else to this switch statement. Much cleaner, right? instead of having those if and then else if and then few other things, right, we have these case, right, and then everything looks nicely organized, right? I know, okay, this is my case 1, this is my case 2, case 3, rather than going to if and else conditions, right? Now how it works, how the switch statement works, right? Okay, so everything under a switch statement comes within this switch block, right? If you see there is a start opening braces and there is a closing braces, right? So what happen is, it's basically you have this switch and you are passing that variable into this switch. Okay, now the value of rating, so and we have a different possible cases, for example case 1, case 2, case 3, case 4, case 5, and default, right? Okay, now within every this case 1 we have a certain statement, and you can write any logic whatever you want, and then we have a break statement, this one. So when the execution happens, right, the value of rating is compared to each case. So what is the value we have in rating is 4. So it's gonna say, okay, the rating value is 1, no, the value is 2, no, the value is 3, no, value is 4. So this case is matching, right? So means case 4. So the value of rating is matching with this value, which is the case number 4. So when a match is found, the code inside this block, these things are executed. Okay, now there is one interesting thing here is the break, right? How do I tell my system that, okay, once you found that condition, you have a match, execute the code, but I don't want to execute rest of the code in my in the different statements, right? How I should stop that one? So in that case, breaks help us, right? It gets into that picture. So what happens is the break statement stops the program from running the next case. So in this case, right, think of this. So I have a value of rating as 4. So it start comparing with each case. If value is matching with 4, no. If the value is matching with 4, no. If value is matching with 4, no. And then finally the value is matching here, right? So it's execute anything which goes inside this program, but then I don't want to basically even compare the values because I know that my value has been matched. So in this case, what break statement is gonna do is it's gonna, once this program, this code is executed, as soon as the break statement is encountered, it's gonna skip all rest of these case comparisons. It's not gonna compare any of the case statements, right? For example, instead of rating 4, if I have a rating, let's say number 2, so what's going to happen is it's going to compare case 1, it's not matching, it will go to the next case, case number 2, it's matching, it's going to execute this one, but then it's going to skip. As soon as the break statement is there, it's going to skip all of these ones. All right, now what happened, let's say if none of these cases are matching, let's say if my value is 10, it's not matching with any of those one, right? That's where the default things get into the picture, right? Think of default as your else condition. So if nothing is matching, your logic or your execution goes into the else statement. Similarly, in a switch statement, if none of the case is matching here, the default is gonna run. Okay, so even if you run this code, let's say if I run this one, right, it says invalid rating, please enter a number between 1 to 5 because this one is running. If I change this one to number 1, it's gonna match this one and gonna skip all of these one. Okay, so in your switch statement, one thing which you should be clear is the break statement is the key point, right? If you want to make sure that only a specific case is executed, you have to make sure there is a break statement, right? So let's take this break out, right? So now what is happening is if I run this code again, you see both number 1 and number 2 is being executed. Okay, so it's not gonna compare whether, okay, case value of case 2 is actually like for example, it's not the true comparison, right? So if the break statement is not met, the program execution is gonna go to the case 2. Okay, and then it will gonna execute. If you remove this one again, if you see, it's gonna print all 3: terrible, bad, and okay. So just be always conscious or careful that when you are using a break statement, using a switch statement, if you want to halt the execution of program as soon as the condition is met, you have to use the break statement. All right. Okay, now the question is why you should use a switch statement instead of a if else, right? There is a if else and there is a switch. So why I should use a switch statement, right? So there are multiple reasons. So number one is, of course, the cleaner code that we have seen, right? Think of, even if you have 20 different conditions, right? Without looking into, if it goes to the if and else, it's gonna be a more clumsy program, right? But instead of these switch statements, everything is clear. I know, looking into the code, I know if the value is 1, this section is gonna be executed, right? So even if I have 20 different blocks, based upon the input, I can clearly see which of this block is gonna execute. So I don't have to go each and every program, all right? So that is number one. Number two is, of course, easier to read, right? That's there. And there is another thing which says, so in some cases it's faster, the switch statement in terms of your execution, they are faster than a normal if and else conditions, right? Especially when we have multiple or so many conditions to check, right? So as a thumb rule, use a switch statement when you are working with a single variable and a specific value like a number, characters, or string, and then okay, you have to run a specific case there. All right. I have taken an example of a integer value, but that's not the only thing you can use in a switch statement. You can use a string, right? You can also use a character. That's up to you. So you are free to use those as part of your switch statement. Okay. Now, this is one example, right? There is another example probably you can try to use as part of your coding exercise. Okay. So if you love coffee, let's say you have different options. You probably have espresso, you have a latte, you have a cappuccino, or a black coffee. So let's say espresso is number 1, latte is number 2, cappuccino is number 3, and black coffee is number 4. Okay, so what you have to do is, and let me put it here. Okay, this is how it look like. Okay, can you create a program where based upon a user your input, you have to print whether user has order for a latte, cappuccino, black coffee, or espresso. So you have to use a switch statement for that one. Think of how you can use these conditions and build a simple switch statement in Java. Okay, or the another good possibility for you probably is the seasons. For example, number 1 is a spring, number 2 is a summer, then number 3 is a autumn, and number 4 is a winter. So think about those one, and let's see if you can build those one. All right, so that's it for today. As I said earlier, right, the switch statement is a powerful tool that makes your code cleaner and easier to manage. And in real world applications, this is you're going to use it quite frequently. All right. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Again, if you have any question, feel free to drop a comment, and I would be more than happy to answer your questions. Till then, thanks again for watching this video, and keep coding. Happy coding.